Alright guys, welcome back. Healing from a breakup. What steps can you take to move on? Now, this is the topic for today's video. Whether you've recently been dumped, you're looking for answers, or perhaps it's been 6 months to a year, even longer, and you feel like you haven't made any progress in your recovery, you've come to the right place. When it comes to breakups, when you look at heartbreak, it is one of the most painful experiences you can possibly go through. However, it is the risk you take when you get into a committed relationship, especially when you have no knowledge on identifying toxic individuals, narcissists, you overlook red flags, you don't have relationship knowledge. So not every breakup has a clean ending. Not every breakup ends amicably. There are situations when an ending can be quite messy, toxic. There was emotional, physical abuse in the relationship. There was betrayal and cheating. These situations can severely damage your confidence, your self-esteem, and your identity. Which means if you do not know how to truly heal or recover, even if you just try and move on and put those emotions away, even though they're buried inside, they will surface in unhealthy ways later on in your life, which can lead you to become emotionally damaged. However, you can fix that and you can fully heal. So with that said, before I get into the steps, I want to give you an analogy of why recovering fully from a breakup is so important. Here's the analogy. So let's say you break your leg. Okay, you know what that feels like. Now, unless you've been in contact sports or you've had an accident, you haven't broken a leg, then I'm sure you know someone who has. Family member, friend. And what you see is they'll put a leg brace on, sometimes they'll put on a cast, depending on the severity, if it's a really bad fracture. Now, the doctor will sit you down and say, this is how many months it's going to take to recover. Don't move your leg, rest it, face it in this position. Don't make any drastic movements, don't cause any more damage to it. You want to avoid that at all costs. Give yourself time to heal and be patient. And guess what? If you follow the doctor's instructions, your leg's going to heal. However, what happens if you undermine the doctor's instructions and you think to yourself, you know what, this guy's a moron, he doesn't know what he's doing, I'm going to speed up the process of my recovery. And now you try and start to move your leg. As the weeks go on, even though it's not fully healed, you try and put pressure on it. You try and walk. You make that attempt. Well, you can cause the fracture to get worse. You can cause even more damage to your leg, which means eventually when it heals, it won't heal fully. And sometimes you can end up with a limp, which translates to you not being able to walk properly or run properly, sometimes even for the rest of your life, all because you didn't follow the steps that you were instructed to follow. Now, how does this translate to breakup and heartbreak? Here's what happens. The average man and the average woman that does not take the time to heal properly from a breakup is going to be left with an emotional limp, and they become emotionally damaged. As I just mentioned, if you have had a breakup where you got betrayed, you were involved with a narcissist, there was shouting matches, control, abuse, threats, they steal from you, they disrespect you, emasculate you consistently, they tear down your identity, and you stay in that relationship till eventually they betray you, cheat on you, they leave you for someone else. Well, this isn't like a normal breakup where we're not compatible, we leave, you just walk away. What happens is that your sense of identity, your self-esteem becomes so broken that what a lot of men and women try and do is suppress it. They try and bury those feelings. They try and put it in the past. And what happens is, as they move on, because they haven't really addressed those emotions, they don't know how to trust fully or love fully ever again. Okay? They do not know how to be open. When they get into a relationship with someone new, they have communication issues. They have this because they're still suffering from the trauma from their past that is unhealed. This can cause more conflict in their current relationship because they're not fully present with their partner. First of all, they're not meeting their own needs because they're stuck in the past. And number two, they're not meeting the needs of their partner. So your future relationships will crumble, which will further damage your self-esteem and your confidence because you will think nothing's working out for me. What is wrong with me? Right? And this is what happens. I see it played out with so many guys and also with women as well. If you have not fully healed, if you have not taken the time to recover to where your self-worth and your confidence, your values, everything is where you want it, you're not ready. If you don't know how to trust other people, if you have this mindset where everybody's bad, all women are the same, you're emotionally damaged and you need to fix that ASAP, or you will end up very miserable. So with that said, let's get into steps you can take to heal. Number one is accepting reality for what it is. Now, to kind of lay the foundation to where you can start the process of emotional recovery, you must get out of your head, out of your emotions, because when you first get dumped, you're going to be in denial. You're going to be in shock. You're going to be in pain. You're going to be stressed. You're going to be fearful. And you're going to be licking your wounds, which is very understandable. However, you cannot stay in that state of mind. You must separate your emotions, at least for the time being. Look back at the breakup because that is the root cause. Your pain is coming from that breakup, from the end of that relationship. So break it open like a coconut, look inside and see what you can find, because that's where you will find the answers. That is the first step for you to recover. Look at the relationship. Look at what went wrong. Why am I saying this? You'll see now, because it has to do with you. When you look at the relationship, a breakup is always going to happen due to a drop or a loss in emotional attraction. By the things that you said or did, you pushed your ex away, or by something they said and did, either consistently or in a singular event, they pushed you away and they still dumped you. Or they forced you to walk away, right? Now, what do I mean by this? You have to understand why the breakup happened. You see, as human beings, we fear the unknown. When we don't understand something, we don't have a sense of control over it, we don't feel safe, we don't feel comfortable, we become fearful. And for the average guy who goes through a breakup, they don't understand why the breakup happens. In fact, they never do. They never attempt to understand it. They just want to try and run from it. And to get closure, you need to look at the root cause. Okay, go through the relationship. Was there fighting? Was there insults? Were you being bad to her? Was it your fault? Were you being needy and insecure? Were you being jealous? Did you have a reason to feel jealous? Or did you have your own insecurities that you were constantly throwing at her until she got tired and dumps your ass? Maybe it was your fault. And if it is, take accountability for that. Accept it for what it is. And that's going to be the first step for you. However, if you look at the relationship and you come to find that, you know what? She's the one to blame here. If you were good to her, you did everything right. She cheated on you. You're looking at a woman that didn't have integrity. If you were constantly getting emotionally abused, even physically abused by a woman, and she was constantly attacking your character, emasculating you, disrespecting you, going out of her way to undermine you, it's very likely that you were dealing with a narcissist. Maybe you dealt with a woman that was using you financially because from the beginning you had low self-esteem and you were leading with what you have to offer instead of who you are. So you attracted that type of woman. That's for you to discover. You have to look at the breakup and think back, okay, do I need to take accountability? Did I push her away? Was it my fault? Or was it her fault? Now, the reason why it's so important to look if it actually was your ex's fault is because you need to absolve yourself from that guilt. I see a lot of guys that when they get dumped, they feel guilty. Or if they get cheated on, especially if that woman was a narc, they will hear things like, oh, I cheated on you because you weren't meeting my needs. Like they'll give them a reason and they'll try and justify it. And these guys, they become so broken in that relationship that they believe it. So now when the relationship is over, they sit back, right? And they think, oh, it's my fault. And they carry this shame in their heart when it's not your fault. It is never your fault if somebody betrays you. Whether you are meeting their needs or not, it does not justify that. Because people that have morals and values and have empathy do not do that. Typically, it's going to be narcissistic and emotionally damaged individuals that will betray you. Okay? So, you must look into the relationship so that at the very least, you can take accountability for your wrongdoings and also separate any guilt and shame you have from her wrongdoings. That is the key here. That is the first step to heal. Because once you see reality for what it is, and you're able to break it down to mistakes, the right, the wrong, and you can basically put it on a list, then it becomes manageable. Because then you can look through where you went wrong, and say, okay, I can work on this. That gives you something to do. Or if you can look at where she went wrong, then you can look at the relationship and ask yourself, what made me attracted to a woman like that in the first place? What made me overlook the red flags? What made me push those red flags to the side? What made me keep going? What made me want to date her? Because oftentimes they're not. You're going to see certain inconsistencies. Something won't seem right. You knew you shouldn't have got involved with her, but you did. Then you can look within yourself and say, you know what? Even though it's not my fault she betrayed me, what made me want to be with a woman that I kind of knew had some severe character flaws? What attracted me to her? Maybe you're codependent, maybe you have trauma from previous relationships prior to that one, or from your childhood. You want to dig deep. So that is the very first step you must take, is understanding. Break it open like a coconut, look at the relationship. What can you learn from it? Okay? Look at where you went wrong, where she went wrong, separate guilt and shame and accountability for what you did. That's it. That's the first step. Very, very hard. A lot of people don't want to do it. It takes balls. Number 2, the second step to move on, to heal, is to go no contact. Now, the reason why this is step number 2 is because you cannot bypass step number 1. You must accept reality for what it is and understand the root cause of the breakup. Once you've done that, now you can go no contact. Unless you're in a situation where you've had kids with a woman, you're going to have to go limited contact because you have to co-parent. Can be difficult. But overall, you go no contact. Okay? No contact means no contact. None of this crap about, oh, I'm going to go no contact for 30 days and then reach out and text them on their birthday. No. They dumped you or they cheated on you. Give them the breakup. Let them have that experience because that's what they think they want. Give them that. Give them that space. Do not smother them. Do not beg. Do not plead. Do not destroy your dignity anymore. Let them go. Give them what they think they want, which is the breakup. Respect their boundaries. Hey, isn't that what you would want to be done to you, to have your boundaries respected? Then respect theirs. All that begging and pleading will not end well. So go no contact, which means 100%. You initiate 0. You don't text to say hi. You don't text to say I miss you. Happy birthday. I'm sorry your cat died. You don't send a single text. However, if your ex reaches out to you, hi, how are you, and you just want to have a small conversation, if you want to, that's up to you. If there's been infidelity and that ex cheated on you, I wouldn't even respond. However, if you're kind enough to tell your ex, I've got nothing else to say to you, I wish you the best, good riddance, you can say that any way you want, and then leave it at that. And if they keep contacting you, then that's up to you whether to block them or not. And if you had a good relationship where it's your fault, you pushed her away because you were insecure, you didn't date her, you took her for granted, you weren't leading the relationship, you were not being masculine, and she lost emotional attraction for you, but you guys had many years together, you are compatible and you do have chemistry, then most of the time you will notice if you go no contact and you have all of those good things, then she will tend to think back on that as a couple of weeks or a month goes by, because what will happen is as you go no contact, your ex is going to look at you and think, I'm expecting him to blow my phone up and chase me. He's not doing that. So they start to wonder. They go from relief, which is their initial, that's their initial experience when they dump you. They feel relief because they're away from you. But now that you're not chasing, you're not pursuing, you're not begging, even if you did that at the beginning, once you stop that and you go no contact, they suddenly have room to breathe. They suddenly have what they think they want, which is the break. And sometimes, even though it's premeditated, you don't really know if you love someone until you lose them. Sometimes an ex needs that, which is why in the case where there's no cheating and you were faithful to each other and you just did a few things, you said a few things to hurt her, you pushed her away, yes, if she hasn't a good emotional tie to you and she was a good woman and you go no contact, she will come back. But for you guys that got cheated on, do not count on it. Because if the woman who cheated on you comes back, she's doing it because it's better than being alone. Okay? But, so that's one thing that will happen when you go no contact, is that most of the times an ex is going to come back. Okay, not for everyone, but if there's history, there's an emotional tie, they will come back. Whether it's for the good, whether they're coming back for a good reason or not, that's up for you to discern. You must look at that yourself. Okay? And now the other reason for going no contact, which is the real reason why I want you to go no contact, is for you to heal. Because when you go no contact and you spend time away from your ex, this gives you time for your emotions to settle. Because you're in no contact and you're not texting, you're not calling, you're not knocking on the door, you're alone with your thoughts, any anger, any resentment you have towards your ex, you're going to have to let that go, and you're going to develop some self-control, which is the great thing about going no contact. You get a bit of your strength back. This is when you start to recover. It's almost like you're going through withdrawal symptoms when you first go no contact, because you have that pull to where you want to contact them, you want security of knowing where you stand with them. But you have to remember, there was once upon a time where they were not in your life and you were okay. And you're basically grieving, and you need to allow yourself to do that. But you have to go no contact, which means zero. No texting, no calling, no initiating, no checking in. Do not do that. Let them go. No contact is about you healing. I know there's other coaches that will tell you, no contact's all about getting your ex back. I don't really teach that. However, as I've just mentioned in the last few minutes I've been talking, yes, if it was a good relationship and you kind of pushed your ex away, go no contact, and there's a chance that they can come back. But the good news is, no contact, if it's for that reason, it's a win-win either way. Either the good ex comes back or you move on either way. Okay? And for you guys that got betrayed and you're still thinking, I'm going to say, yes, give your ex a chance. No, not at all. If you're thinking that, no. You go no contact to heal, 100%. And forget about your ex. And go no contact will help you. Do not stalk them on social media. Do not check what they're doing on Instagram, on Facebook, on Snapchat. Don't look at that. A lot of guys get stuck on that, and that prevents them from moving on. because more than likely, especially if you're the one who got dumped, the dumper is going to be a little bit happier because they think they want the breakup. So they're going to be moving on, especially if you got cheated on, they're going to be with someone new anyway because they monkey brushed on you. And you seeing that is just going to further damage. So going no contact means literally zero. No stalking, no reaching out, nothing. Zero. Okay? Because when you're in a relationship, your identity becomes molded into that woman. And now that she's ripped away from you, your heart will bleed, right? Metaphorically speaking. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you physically. But yeah, you're going to be in a lot of pain. And going no contact is always the second step, because it gives you a chance to put the brakes on everything because you're not reaching out. It gives you a chance to develop your self-control, gather your emotions, and gives you time to think logically. Because a lot of the times you think you want the ex back. But I found, for me, in my life, and in most of the guys that I've coached, I'd say 95% of the time, when they go no contact, by the time the ex reaches out, they've moved on. They're happy, they're whole again, they're complete, they've got their life back. Okay, no contact will really help you heal. Okay, but you cannot bypass step number one. Okay, accept reality for what it is and understand the root cause of your breakup. Then go no contact. Don't forget. Okay, number 3, allow yourself to grieve. Now that you're in no contact and you aren't interacting with your ex, which will, if you were, you'd be even more attached. But now that you, for the time being, you're separated, you're alone, your thoughts with your emotions, now it's when you can start grieving. Going through a breakup is loss. It's no different than losing a loved one. Your dog, your cat. Yes, I am comparing your ex to a dog and a cat. A family, a friend, best friend, a parent, a sibling. Those are all very painful situations. Losing someone you love. Because your life was tied to them. You did everything together. You get used to hearing their voice. You know their day-to-day, their schedule, their smell, their look. You knew, or at least you thought you knew everything about them. And that becomes part of you, part of your identity. And now that they're not in your life anymore, well, you're going to grieve. You will go through a period of loss. Now, what I'm going to say to you here is you must feel it to heal it. Do not bury those emotions deep within. Express them to yourself. You need to sit there and take a few days by yourself where you're just emotional, do that. But you need to let it out. And it's the same thing you see with children. What do kids do when they're upset? They cry, they let out their emotions. You see a little girl, she falls on a bike, or, you smack your brother around the head with a baseball bat when you're playing as kids. Happens, and he cries. What happens? We were tough kids back then. You just carry on playing as if nothing happened. But you have that period where you stop and you let out the emotions and then you keep going. That's what children do naturally. That's how they regulate their emotions. Especially if they grew up in an environment with healthy parents. And as adults, people bottle those emotions down. And I'm not saying you weep in front of everyone, but you do that alone. You let out your feelings when you're alone. You pour out those emotions. And that's very, very good for your recovery, because those emotions, they flow through you. Then your body will relax. And it will happen many times, especially in the first weeks, first few months of the breakup, and then you will be fine. But you got to feel it to heal it. Now, this is where it gets very, very important. The reason why it's so important to express those emotions is because if you don't, and you bottle them up inside, this happens to absolutely everyone that does this. If you go through a breakup, you get dumped, you don't understand the root cause of your breakup, you don't go no contact, or basically you've pretty much begged the crap out of your ex to where they've blocked you. So now you're forced to go no contact. And now you're grieving. Now you're with your emotions. You don't know how to handle it. What's going to happen is because you're too afraid to deal with those emotions and process them, what you will do is lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms. You will distract yourself with pleasures. Whether it's alcohol, drugs, sometimes people do what is called emotional eating. They put on a lot of weight after a breakup. They eat a lot of junk food to get that feel-good sensation that they were missing from the breakup. Other people, they do the opposite. They basically do a Mahatma Gandhi and they go full-on fasting and they don't eat at all and they lose a lot of weight. And some people need that. But it's still not healthy. Unless you're doing intermittent fasting and you're doing it in a schedule. If you're just doing it from an emotional perspective, from a breakup, it's really not good for your health because that leads to other problems mentally. What's worse is a lot of men, especially men, they fall into the trap of pornography. You get dumped and you're angry, you're bitter at your ex, you're mad, and obviously you're not ready to go out there and date. So instead, what do? You let your lust take control of your life and you start watching porn, which leads to more guilt and shame. And the worst part is you get into these unhealthy coping mechanisms and it gets worse. If you hit the bottle, you'll start drinking more. If you start smoking, you'll smoke more. If you take any type of hard drugs, you will start taking more. Because what happens is you get the high. When the high goes down, the pain of the breakup resurfaces. You don't want to deal with the pain of the breakup, so you drink more alcohol. Okay, after your hangover, the pain comes back, you start drinking again. It's more intense. You see where I'm going with that? It gets worse. It spirals out of control. No different than when you start eating a lot, or you start eating less, or you get into pornography. Please. That is why step number 3 is allow yourself to grieve. Allow yourself to feel those emotions and let them out and accept them. Be present with those feelings because they're going to come and they're going to go and they're going to do that for a very long time. But each time you will notice you'll feel a little bit better, especially when you're not using any coping mechanisms. You're being right there with your feelings and you let them come out. Okay, pleasure does not fill the void. Okay, ultimately, fulfillment, happiness, joy, that is what is going to make you happy in life, right? So give yourself permission to feel those emotions. And remember, healing isn't linear. It varies from person to person. If you've been in a 6-month relationship, depending on the intensity of it, if it was toxic or abusive, it might take you longer or less to heal. Some people are in a 3-year relationship, 5-year relationship, and they heal within a year and a half. Some guys are with a girl for 2 years and they get over it in 3 months. It depends. Okay? It depends upon your circumstance. But if you want to speed that along healthily, after you follow step 1 and 2, or step number 3, allow yourself to grieve. Do not get caught up in unhealthy coping mechanisms. Now, number 4, this is a very important one, my favorite. Find external support or a support network, whatever you want to call it. Surround yourself with good friends and family that have experience with overcoming a breakup, or at the very least, someone who has experience in helping others overcome breakups. Someone that has strong morals, good character that you can rely on, that is mature. Right? If you go through a breakup but then you want to sit there with your cousin who's been married 4 times and he's in his 4th marriage, his wife is treating him like a dog, he's probably not who you should go to for advice. So be mindful of who you choose as a support system, but definitely sit down with a few, or maybe one person that you trust. Maybe it's a therapist, a psychologist, a pastor in your church. Maybe you also reach out to me. I deal with a lot of cases like this. You can always shoot me an email. It's down in the description. of this video and on the About tab on the YouTube channel. So surrounding yourself with a support system, with someone that can help you through the breakup process will be extremely beneficial to you, especially when your breakup was very difficult. You were in a relationship with a narcissist. Again, someone who betrayed you, emotionally abused you, took advantage of you, and let's say you're having these withdrawal symptoms, right? Because that's what happens in a very toxic, abusive relationship. The emotional intensity is so strong, you can feel sucked back in. But when you have someone who's level-headed, who is on the outside, so his emotions are not involved, and they can look at you and see that you're hurting, they can grab you by the arm and stop you from running back, making a stupid mistake, getting involved with that toxic ex who may even be trying to come back to you. So that is why it's so good to have a support system, because that's really how you have to look at a toxic or abusive relationship that ends. It can cause a lot of damage, a lot of trauma. And when you're trauma bonded, okay, with a narcissist, with a toxic ex, what happens is you tend to block out any of the negatives. Even though you know it's not healthy for you and it's bad, you're addicted to the emotional highs and lows, the crumbs that they throw at you. So you will find it very hard to leave. I mean, look at someone who's an alcoholic. Typically, they don't go to rehab by themselves. They have a family member or a friend or an acquaintance that takes them there. And once they get the help they need, even when they come out of rehab, they still have someone to watch over them and make sure that they are sober and that they have changed. And it's no different when you're in a very difficult relationship, especially one of these toxic ones where you break up and get back together 50 times. Yeah, that's when you want a good friend or someone who has the knowledge and the experience who's going to help you, who's going to keep you level-headed, who's going to guide you and, slap you back into your senses. Because a lot of men screw themselves up by going back or attempting to go back with an ex who isn't good for them. And finding external support is very good for you to boost your morale, because remember, you become like people you hang around. And if you've been around that, and when you were in that relationship with that ex, you were around her. You bonded with her, you spent time with her. And those negative traits, those toxic traits she had, spill over into you, right? Poisoning you. But when you change your environment and you've got a good group of people in your life that are helping you, that are nurturing you again, that are building you up, they basically clean you out to where eventually you can stand on your 2 feet and you're okay. So you will be fine if you have a good support system, which I recommend for everyone. Okay. And another thing to mention on this is it's very good to talk about your problems, because when your pain is bottled up inside and you suppress it, if you keep it down low, eventually it's going to explode. But when you have someone to talk to that understands, that knows what you're going through, and they can help you through that by you releasing those negative emotions, and you get your human needs met because you're feeling valued, understood, appreciated, safe and comfortable, special, well, eventually all of that pain will leave in a healthy way because your emotions become validated. And this is very interesting because after World War II, when we won, the Allies, when you look at the veterans that lived, and some of them are still alive today in their late 90s, but the ones that made it to a very old age, when they came home, obviously they were received as heroes, but they would always talk about their experiences. They would sit down, they'd tell family, friends, everyone, they discuss what they saw. Even though it was difficult for some of them, they eventually let it out. I mean, there's YouTube channels of, I can't remember the name, but they interview any World War II veterans that are alive, all of their experiences. And when you hear these these gentlemen speak, I mean, they're in their late 90s, most of them. Like, they're with it mentally. They talk so eloquently. They remember everything in a detailed manner. Why? They always talk about it. They let all of that pain out, which helps with the trauma, with the PTSD. And whether it's complex PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder from a toxic or abusive relationship, well, it's kind of the same thing. You've got to talk about it if you want to have a long life. If you want to become healthy again, you need to let that out of you. So back to what I was saying about World War II. And when you look at the veterans that kind of bottle that pain inside and they didn't talk about their experiences much, they typically died very young. They hit the bottle, or they let out the pain, crime, violence, and a lot of them, they just didn't live a very good life. A lot of them went very crazy because they didn't get enough assistance or help properly. My grandfather who fought in World War II, he passed away in 1994, very young in his mid to late 60s. That's really young. And he rarely spoke about it. When I asked my dad, my uncle, my grandmother, she's the only grandmother I have left, when I asked them about all the experiences from my grandfather, they told me. But he would only talk about it on very few occasions. He hated talking about what he went through in World War II. Because there were very few instances where he would mention it. Because he suffered a lot. He lost his whole family. And he didn't open up. He didn't want to talk about it. And he bottled it up inside. And I do believe that's one of the larger reasons why he did a lot. He smoked a lot, even though most people did back in the day. But he wasn't very healthy towards the end. But it's just one example of what happens. Because that pain, it gets trapped in your physiology, okay, in your body posture. It kind of makes you old and fragile. It breaks you down. Whether it's trauma from a relationship, even from war. And you look at veterans that come out healthier, they are the ones that they might struggle at the beginning, but as long as they talk about it and everything out, and they see that this is okay, this is a safe space to do this, then they become stronger, they become understood, and they recover mentally. Not completely, not everyone, but some of them do. So it's just something to consider. With that analogy I'm giving you, which they've done studies on, it's true. The ones that talk about it, they tend to come out much better than the ones who don't. And it's the same thing with difficulties you've had in your relationships. When you go to someone who's a specialist in that, and they deal with clients, and they know what they're doing, they can really help you understand those emotions that you're dealing with and overcome all of that pain. Okay, so you will come out stronger. That's why talking about everything is so important. Always find a support. So, number 5, I believe so. Accept reality for what it is. Go no contact. Allow yourself to grieve. Find external support. Number 4. Number 5. This one, a lot of you need to hear. Do not go out and date to try and fill that lonely void. Because when you're dumped, you've gone through a breakup, you miss your ex. You're not over them. You're emotionally unstable. One of the worst things you can do is to go out when you haven't healed and date. Because you know what's going to happen? Because you're so broken. Because you don't have to trust, you don't have to love. Typically, when you're coming out of a long-term relationship, and you break up, what will happen is you will lower your standards because you just want to have some attention, some companionship. So the first girl that comes around, whether she's good for you or not, which means more than likely you're going to overlook red flags, you will date her. And what will happen is, let's say it does work long-term, when you start to get serious with it, more problems will start coming out in that relationship because she's not going to be what you really want. Your heart's not going to be in it. and you're going to not only hurt her but hurt yourself. And if you did overlook red flags and she's not a good woman to be with, then that pain is going to be multiplied times 1,000. That's why you don't go out and date when you're not ready. It's not fair for the girl and it's not fair for you. I mean, think of it in terms of rebounds. That's basically what you're doing. You know, have you ever gone out and you meet a girl, maybe you have a couple of dates, everything goes well, and then she disappears. And you think to yourself, where's she gone? I haven't done anything wrong. Well, do you know that a lot of women that go out there and date, they're fresh out of a long-term relationship. They miss their ex. Maybe they get back in touch with him. And then they just block you, delete you from their life as if it never happened. Because they got rid of you because he came back in the picture because she's got a stronger emotional connection with him. You can't compete with that. And it's the same thing. You might go out and try and date another girl, and then your ex reaches out to you, which is what you wanted. Maybe you just got to the point where you think, you know what, I might just date a girl, why not? I'm lonely, I've got nothing else to do. Then your ex reaches out, and you've gone on 2 dates with a girl. Well, you're eventually going to delete that girl and go back to the ex because you've got a stronger emotional connection. That's what happens. A lot of couples, they rebound, they get back together, even though it doesn't really work out the second time, in most cases. Some cases it does. But do not go out and fill the void thinking that you're going to go out and date and meet the next great love of your life when you're not even ready to be in a relationship, because you're not going to give it your all. You're going to be operating from a very weak and fearful frame of mind. And that's not the way you should be. You need to take that time to heal, to be alone. Use the breakup to develop your self-control. Don't lead with your lust. Okay? The same way you can use pornography or alcohol as a coping mechanism, some guys use dating as a coping mechanism. And then they go out and they get involved with the wrong woman, and then they're hurt all over again. So that you're hurt from this girl and you're hurt from the previous one. You don't want that. Do not do it until you're ready. And finally, number 6, develop your value system. What do I mean by this? Now that you've accepted the breakup for what it is, you've got no contact, you're grieving, you've got a support system, you're not dating anyone, you're taking the time for yourself. This gives you a lot of time with your own thoughts to analyze everything, to replay the breakup over and over, which you've probably done 1,000,000 times. This gives you a chance to redefine and upgrade your value system. What does that even mean? What is a value system? Value system are standards, your boundaries, your deal breakers that you have, your principles, your morals in which you operate, by which you make decisions in every area of your life. And when you go through a breakup, it's a great opportunity for you to self-reflect, look within, and take a look at which areas you need to tweak. Where can you improve upon? Reflect upon the breakup. Did you lose yourself in the relationship? Did you become weak and needy? Did you give up your friends and your hobbies? A lot of men do that. Did you put on weight? Did you let the woman walk all over you? Why did you do that? Go deeper, right? It's up to you to ask yourself these quality questions if you want to get quality answers from it. But you can't sit there and expect time to magically heal you if you're not making any effort. So use the breakup to open yourself up and look at yourself and be honest and say, you know what? I need to become stronger. I need to become more confident. I always lead with my lust. I need to develop more self-control. You know what? I need to get focused on my life and have purpose, something that drives me and fulfills me. I tend to pedestalize women. Okay, I need to pedestalize myself a bit more. You need to know what you need to change by looking within. Okay? Because you've got to have a fulfilling life with or without women, or else it's just never going to work out for you. You know, another thing you can do is sit down and analyze your ex. Did you overlook red flags within her? Why? What caused you to do that? Take some time to learn and educate yourself on relationships. Okay? Your standards. Did you really stand up for yourself in the relationship? Did you even have any standards? Get some confidence. What values do you have? What do you expect from a woman? What are your deal breakers? What are you not willing to tolerate? Because sometimes a breakup can teach you a very important life lesson that, you know what? I don't want to be in this type of relationship. Maybe she was abusive or she was narcissistic. Take your time to educate yourself on how to identify a narcissist so that you can avoid getting involved with a narcissist again. If you are someone who thought, you know what, I'll always forgive a cheater, and now you've seen the damage it causes you by getting back with a cheater and they ultimately left you again, well, now it's a deal breaker for you. If a woman cheats on me or shows me signs that she's unfaithful, emotionally or physically cheats on me, I'm done. You develop a deal breaker. You increase your boundaries and your standards because it's about protecting you, okay? Because ultimately, your boundaries, your standards, they're a reflection of your core values, of your self-esteem. So a breakup is a time for you to focus on yourself, to analyze everything that you went through. You take that pain, you look at it and say, what has this relationship taught me? Do I want to avoid a woman like this again? Or do I want to be with this type of woman again? What flaws did I overlook? What standards do I need to increase? That's for you to decide. But it's a great chance for you to self-reflect. And ultimately, time will heal you. But if you follow those steps, it will heal you fully. You don't want to end up with an emotional limp. Okay? That's all I've got to say. That is the video. Hope you guys enjoy it. Give it a like, subscribe if you haven't, comment down below your thoughts, what you would like to see next. And if you'd like to reach out to me privately, the email is in the description. And with that said, see you guys in the next one.